What's good, Polly? Gang, 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 gang. It's your boy, KeeSeeY. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is part 3 of 4 of 200 Cadillacs with Elvis Presley. This is a mini documentary series about him giving away 200 Cadillacs. So I just finished watching part 2, so let's just jump straight into part 3.
Very surprised. He just stood and grinned as I opened the box. But I found out from my husband that Elvis had bought this for me because he had bought my husband the Cadillac, and he didn't want me to feel that I wouldn't have a gift as appropriate as my husband's.
When I first saw him, he was looking in the window of a store down on Beale Street. I invited him into the store, and I showed him around, showed him what was happening. I said, "Sir, I don't have no money right now." He said, "But when I get rich, I'll buy you out." I said, "Do me a favor, don't buy me. I'll just buy from me." And he cut a couple of records, all at once. Come back, he's Mr. Lansky. He said, "I got to have some real sharp clothes. I'm going on television." The first one that ever put a flip collar on Elvis was me. And from then, he liked it. He had that ducktail hair back. When I pull it up, blew his mind. And from then on, that's what he started wearing.
Okay. So he was his stylist, I assume. He must have styled him. Because he styled him in his early days when Elvis must have first started out. But one thing I gotta say about his stylist is dresser, I guess, the guy that dressed him in that collar and showed him how to do the collar. One thing I will say about him is that he has an iconic voice. Just the way you hear him talk for a second, it's like his voice is, it sounds like it was, I don't know, like I've heard it before. This isn't the first time like I've heard him speak. I feel like I've heard him somewhere before. I'm just not sure where.
And from then, he liked it. He had that ducktail hair back. When I pull it up, blew his mind. And from then on, that's what he started wearing.
He thinking I am very looking terrible, so he gave to me a leather jacket and then many different clothing. I'm not good dresser. He bought lots of clothing for me.
Oh,
every 6 months he gives clothes away.
Oh, so that's where he got that little thing to go around his neck, I think. Is that what he said? That's where it's from? I know he said something about a leather jacket that he had gave his karate instructor, but I wonder if that's where he got that inspiration to put that thing around his neck.
And then many different clothing. I'm not good dresser. He bought lots of clothing for me.
About every 6 months he gives clothes away. And to a few of the guys that were closer to his size, like Jerry Schilling and a few others, we got his jackets. And I'm about maybe 2 inches, 3 inches taller than Elvis. So he gave me shirts and everything was just a little too short. And I tried to make it fit and just,
I've got one of his jackets. I guess I could get $50,000 for it. I've got one of his jackets that he wore, let's see, 55. Got the little black velvet collar. He had a great heart, and if he had anything that, if you complimented the shirt he had on, well, he'd almost take it off and give it to you. That's just the way he was.
Beale Street, soulful southern stew, integrated, fascinating, raw, transforming the boy who would became into a music man like no one ever saw. It was all in the music and in the rhythm when he'd sing, and in the lessons learned both obvious and core.
He was a good man, wonderful man. Had a temper, we all know that. Had a huge ego, we all know that, but I don't think you can find a superstar that doesn't have one. That's what makes him so special.
That's true.
I never heard him say in a situation that was serious, "I'm wrong, I apologize, I'm wrong." He would get around it. In other words, he just couldn't do it. He would make up it in other ways, just in words or in some other sort of deed or something. Say something to you to let you know that what happened yesterday or the day before, it's over and it's done and it's gone, and I didn't mean to do it.
As the ring was in midair, before it even came down, before he even saw who got the ring, he turned and walked off stage. Afterwards, I remember Joe Esposito said to Elvis, "What the hell are you doing? That's like a $30,000 diamond ring. Why did you do that?" And Elvis said, I'll tell you why I did it. He said, I just, that voice inside of me, that still small voice, just said, someone needs that ring more than I. He said, I can buy a ring of all the rings I want.
When he put his rings on, they would put Band-Aids, flesh-colored Band-Aids, around his fingers in front of the rings, so that when he'd do his routine going down and shaking hands in the front of the stage, nobody would be able to pull these rings off.
Oh.
This particular night, after about the second or third night of wearing this one ring, he was getting ready to go out, and he said, "Don't put one there." It didn't mean anything to me, but Joe looked at me and he said, "He's going to give that ring away." The concert went on, and we were all standing in the backstage or behind the speakers where we would stand, and he'd do his routine where he'd go down to the audience or go down to the edge of the stage and give his scarves away, and he'd start shaking hands. There was a little girl sitting down there in a wheelchair, sitting real close to the front of the stage, and he took this ring off and put it in her hand, closed her hand. His security guys went over to the little girl's mother and told her he just gave her a really expensive ring. It was an opal, a huge, maybe 4, 5, 6 carat opal. And around it, it had either half or 3/4 diamonds all the way around it. I mean, this thing was, the center stone was huge. So it was a huge ring. I mean, it was a stage person's ring. And I remember that it cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 or $40,000. That's the kind of stuff. And there was never any news press about that. There was never any publicity about that. He didn't do it for that. I mean, he got a big thrill out of giving this little girl in a wheelchair this ring, and I mean, that's the kind of stuff he did.
And I'm pretty sure that ring, 30 to 40,000. Back then, that ring is probably worth, if they still have it, or unless they must have sold it back then. If they sold it for, they resold it. If they resold it, they probably sold it for around that same price. But if they still have it, they sell it again. That ring could sell for anywhere up to $1 million to like probably $1 million, to be honest with you. Especially because it was worn by Elvis Presley, which is incredible to me. But I remember hearing about that story in another documentary, or maybe it was the part one of this one. It was either part one of this documentary or another documentary, where I think the little girl or her family, they actually talked about this, went to depth about Elvis giving them that ring. And it was interesting to learn about that. And I think the biggest thing to me was like how one of his friends, or one of the people that was around him, had said that it was because there was like a tiny voice in Elvis's head that had told him, hey, this is an opportunity to give something away to someone that might need it, that it could help them do something. Or maybe that little girl, her parents were struggling, possibly paying doctor bills. She had went through something, they had to pay that, or maybe they might have been struggling financially and they were able to take her to a concert. That ring possibly could have helped pay for something, or help pay for something like something else for them. Or maybe that ring could just mean something special to her family. So I think that was incredible, just listening and learning about that.
It was after he got out of the Army, and we come in and record one night, and they had a spotlight over his head so he could see the lyrics, you know. And it was hitting, reflecting off of these diamonds. And what, it was just diamonds all over the walls. You could see them diamonds shining, you know. So after the first take, I said, well, that's a nice ring you got, Elvis. He said, yeah. I said, I just got them not long, a few days ago, whatever. He said, you want to wear it for a while? I said, yeah, I'll wear it for a little while if you don't mind. So he said, now, when we get through in the morning, it was the next morning, he said, you can give it back to me. I said, that'd be fine. So when we got through and they called it a wrap, and I went over to him, I said, well, here's your ring back. He said, oh, no. I said, hell, when I go broke, then you give it back to me, you know. So still got it.
This is the ring that Elvis Presley gave.
I gotta stop for a minute. I just realized this when they said it in the thing. It took me a while for me to process this, but that was Elvis Presley's drummer. I always talk about this guy and like some of my previous reactions. Anytime Elvis performs, he's always doing something crazy as well. Like they match each other's energy, which I love to see when they perform. So it's actually good to hear from the drummer and like some of the musicians that actually played alongside with Elvis.
So still got it.
This is the ring that Elvis Presley gave to my husband for his birthday. And this one was given to me because my name means Leilani. It's a
That was well designed right there. Wow. I like that right there. I like that ring. I like how they designed that.
And this one was given to me because my name means Leilani. It's a Hawaiian name, which means a heavenly flower. So he thought this would be appropriate to give me because it's a flower. This one he gave to me, I think it was the first diamond ring that he gave me. Elvis liked to give from the heart, and the Hawaiian people are the same way. They believe in sharing what they have, even if it's very little, that they would share with family and friends and not be selfish and not be feeling that it's mine and I'm not going to give it to anyone else. So that we definitely have in common with Southerners. Elvis had gone to Hawaii a lot, and he was the largest single contributor to the Pearl Harbor Monument. And because he had done the concert in Hawaii, he wanted to give my husband a gift that would be memorable to him. And so he gave him the cape and the belt that he wore during the concert in Hawaii. And we have it in our hallway. It's beautifully framed.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Once Elvis and I went into a pet store. He said, give me every one of these dogs. We got a pug, we got a poodle, we got a Maltese, we got a chow, we got a Pomeranian. I mean, there was every kind of dog that you could imagine. We were swarmed with 15 puppies in the car coming home, and we gave all these dogs away. I mean, it was incredibly joyous.
Which reminds me of a time we were buying horses. We got Priscilla and Sandy a horse, and then Elvis and I got a horse. And then he wanted to give the rest of the guys a horse, and then their wives a horse. And we wound up with about 48 horses at Graceland, which wasn't big enough for that. And then buying a ranch. One night, we were about 3 in the morning, I get a call. Hey, Jerry, there's this great horse ranch down in Mississippi. I'm going to be by to pick you up. And we go down to Mississippi. There's this beautiful green pasture, a big white cross, and 160 acres. I'm riding horses again at 4 in the morning. The Circucci Ranch, yeah. And Elvis wound up buying that.
Our friendship.
One thing I could say that horses are expensive, so that's great. I know Elvis got a horse, his friend got a horse, and they were just able to go on the ranch and ride around. And I think he also Elvis gave away something else as well. But man, another thing I wanted to touch on is that I realized, like, with the Cadillacs and specifically with those, giving those away, is that, like, I feel like he had, like, a lot of cars at that time, and then, like, probably towards the middle of his career, you start to realize that you probably don't use them as much, because Elvis probably had designated drivers, so people driving him around, kind of like how they do the president or someone in high power. They were probably just driving him around, and most of the time he probably didn't drive his vehicles like that. But, so maybe he just, because I remember he gave away one of his cars to one of his friends. He just gave away one of his own vehicles to one of them. So I think that's probably what it was. And then you start to realize that most of these materialistic things, they're not going to stick with you forever. You know what I mean? Like your friends, your family, they'll be with you until, something happens. But the materialistic things are nice to have. They're great to enjoy. They're like I said, they're nice to have, but overall, they're not going to be there forever. So I guess it's good to share it with people around you. So
goes beyond anything material that he ever gave. And over the years, I received cars and rings and watches. And I remember one time, he said to me, "Come on, I got a surprise for everyone." Okay. Walk outside, and there was a huge truck. And on the truck were about 12 brand new Harley Davidsons. And Elvis said to everyone, all right, y'all, everyone just pick out the one you want. This is my gift to you.
That's cool.
Outside the gates, there were tons of people. They were taking pictures and people were screaming at Elvis, hi Elvis, I come over here and I love you. There was this young kid who was leaning against the gate. And we walked over to this kid and Elvis said, those are nice bikes, aren't they? Well, the kid was frozen. Elvis Presley actually walked up and said something to him. Elvis said, would you like to have a bike? I want you to go take a bike for yourself. This is my gift to you, son. I want you to have a bike. The kid got a bike. Elvis and I walked away and he said, man, when I saw the look in his eyes.
He offered me $50,000. I'm trying to refuse that $50,000. Holding my hand, he told me that if I spending $1 million each day, and still I cannot spend my money, so you do not have to worry about this money, just to go keep it and then using that developing Memphis karate, martial art. And entire bodyguard, they approaching me, Master Conray, you Elvis really mean it. Why don't you take it, that the $50,000 check? Elvis Presley is the biggest influence in my life. He's the most generous person, a giving person, loving person. As a martial artist, and he's the true master.
Elvis really derived more pleasure from giving than from receiving. In fact, it embarrassed him, and he just felt like, I have everything, please don't give me anything. So he was extraordinarily generous to a fault at times. There were times that, when people took advantage of his generosity, but it didn't seem to bother him.
People would try sometime to rain on Elvis's parade, and that used to irritate me a whole lot. When he'd do something, why'd you give them that? He said, because I wanted to. And I'm thinking, why are you asking him? In my mind, I'm thinking, why are you asking him why he gave somebody something?
Yeah.
Elvis liked to give from the heart.
That just sounds like jealousy right there. You know what I mean? Like, if he really just wanted to give things to people, I mean, that's just the type of person he is. And if his finances were fine, and it wasn't like he was losing money or nothing like that, and his family's still taken care of, then, I mean, I think that's his personal choice. And that's just what he wanted to do. So it's just jealousy, People, if he would have gave them that, they wouldn't be complaining. They wouldn't have been complaining at all. But that's all it was.
When he'd do something, why'd you give them that? He said, because I wanted to. And I'm thinking, why are you asking him? In my mind, I'm thinking, why are you asking him why he gave somebody something?
Elvis liked to give from the heart, and he didn't want to feel that he had to give things to people or that they were going to demand it or expect it. He wanted to do it because he wanted to do it, and he wanted to give it to whom he wanted to give.
He was also a smart man. He could perceive when people, after a point, in the beginning he might not be so aware of someone taking advantage of him, but it didn't take him long to catch on. And once he did, he knew where to draw the line.
But there were some jealous guys in that outfit. Not a bunch of them, but 2 or 3 that were not going to be left out when Elvis started giving away things. I mean, they would fly from another city to be there while he was doing the giving so they could get it.
What?
They would bring it up to him and say, where's mine?
And at the time, it just unfolded so genuinely and so easily and so readily that there was never a lot of fanfare, never any publicity. He didn't do it for any kind of self-aggrandizement. He didn't do it for any kind of accolades. He did it because he was generous of spirit and generous of heart, and he derived great joy.
So then Captain Kennedy, his brother, was a deputy sheriff, and he died. We went back up there for the funeral.
Elvis played a very significant role in how all of that transpired. I mean, he played a very humanist role in making the Kennedy lives not quite as difficult as they could have been.
Unfortunately, my brother, who was a Denver police detective, who had some personal problems, marital problems and so forth, took his own life. Well, this Elvis was more moved than members of the family. I mean, this was a blow to him, and you just can't say enough about the guy. I mean, he went over to the family's house, he counseled all the nephews and nieces and children, I mean, like a brother. And he was a very sincere man. And he ended up, in fact, paying for the funeral, which was no small tab. He also flew in his group, the Stamps, to sing at the funeral. The church was packed, of course, and was aisles and aisles of rows and rows of policemen there, and he wanted to be part of that group.
And Elvis didn't want to draw any attention, so he wore a policeman's uniform and hat, everything at the funeral.
Wow.
Very.
I gotta say, y'all, that was a great video. That was part 3 of 4 of 200 Cadillacs. I really enjoyed that. The stories that people were telling about Elvis was interesting to hear about. I love hearing just stories in general, especially like when you're just hanging out with people that you just met, and then they tell you like a cool story, like a fun story about something that happened. Like I don't know, like I guess I just like listening to stuff and listening to like fun things. So it's just interesting to hear about this and to hear about like first-hand accounts in close and interpersonal stuff about Elvis Presley. And yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. So yeah, guys, I think this will be the end of part 3. I will be. So yeah, guys, this will be the end of part 3. Part 4. Fuck. So this is my third time doing this. So yeah, guys, this will be the end of part 3, and then I will be releasing part 4 right after part 3. So I think, you know what? I think I'll just release part 2, part 3, and part 4 all together. So you guys could just watch these as like a little mini series, you know what I mean? You just knock out, if you already knocked out 1, you can just watch 2, 3, and 4. If you haven't already watched it yourself, you just knock them all out if you want to watch them in order like that. But anyway, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and react to part 4, because this story is just so good. It's like different stories. At first I thought it was going to be all about Cadillacs, but it's really about like just Elvis being generous, some personal stories that they were telling about him, and also not even him giving out Cadillacs, but him giving out different stuff, and how he gave out to people that he didn't even know, like people that he was just looking on TV, just gave out something to him. But yeah, but anyway, on that note, it's your boy KeeSeeY. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my page. Please like the video, comment on any other Elvis Presley video you guys want me to react to. Cause Polly gang. Yo.